The alien ship appeared in the gray sky over the colony like a shadow swallowing the sunlight. Its surface was dark, sleek, and alive with strange lights that pulsed slowly. People stopped what they were doing. Workers dropped tools, children stopped playing, and traders froze mid-step. The ship was enormous, taller than any building in Gray Harbor, and its landing caused the ground to tremble. Dust rose around its massive legs as it settled near the center of the city. Everyone knew what it meant. The vampire queen had arrived. Her name was Sarava, and she was feared across the stars. Entire civilizations had bent to her will, and many who resisted were wiped out. She had a beauty that was both cruel and dangerous, with skin pale as ice and eyes that glowed faintly red in the dark. Her hair fell like silk, dark and shining, and her hands were long and delicate, yet capable of tearing a man apart with a single swipe. Her guards moved around her, tall and thin with the same glowing eyes, silent and deadly. The humans of Gray Harbor had no time to react. As Sarava stepped down from her ship, a low, commanding voice filled the square. "Kneel!" The word was not loud, but it struck the crowd like a hammer. One by one, they fell to the ground. Men, women, and even children dropped to their knees. Fear had learned its lesson long ago. Survival meant obedience. All except one. Luke Harris stood in the middle of the square. Arms relaxed at his sides, eyes calm. He did not kneel. He did not bow. He did not even flinch. Around him, people whispered, in terror. A few tried to drag him down, but his friends and co-workers hesitated. Luke was strong, yes, but no one had ever seen anyone challenge the vampire queen before. Some thought it was madness. Others thought it was bravery. Sarava stopped. Her eyes focused on Luke, and a shiver ran through her guards. She had never encountered a human who resisted her command. She leaned slightly forward, tilting her head. "You do not kneel," she said softly, almost a whisper. But everyone heard it. "Why?" Luke lifted his chin. "I do not kneel because I do not fear you." The words were simple, but they carried a weight that surprised Sarava. Fear was her weapon. It was her strength. Every being in her path had bowed before her, sometimes willingly, sometimes out of terror. But this human, this fragile creature of flesh and blood, did not give her that satisfaction. Sarava's lips curved slightly in a smile that did not reach her eyes. She had a curiosity now that had not existed before. She stepped closer, each movement smooth and dangerous. Luke's gaze met hers without wavering. He did not flinch when she drew near, and that, more than anything, made her pause. "Do you know who I am?" she asked. Luke nodded. Her smile sharpened. "And yet, you still stand." Luke shrugged. "I have nothing to gain by kneeling, and I have nothing to lose by standing." The crowd gasped. A few covered their mouths in fear. Others looked at Luke, with hope they had not felt in years. He was ordinary, yes. Just a man who worked as an engineer, fixing machines and keeping the colony alive. But right now, he seemed larger than life. Sarava tilted her head, studying him. She could feel the faint barrier around his mind. Normally, her influence touched the hearts and minds of all who saw her. They would feel her power, the need to obey. But Luke, he was untouched. He was like glass that she could not break, or stone that resisted the wind. "You are strong," she said, not as a warning, but as an observation. Luke kept his voice calm. "I have faced strong things before." She raised an eyebrow. "Have you? Do you know what strength means?" "Strength means bending worlds, breaking minds, taking what you want without mercy." "I know," Luke replied. "I have seen what it means when the strong hurt to the weak. I choose differently." For a moment, Sarava considered striking him down, ending this insolence before it could spread. Her claws twitched slightly, and a low hum rose from the ship behind her. The humans held their breath. But instead of fear, Luke met her gaze with quiet certainty. "You should kneel," one of her guards whispered to another. "Do you not feel the danger?" "We are not concerned," the other replied. "She wants to see this one herself." Sarava motioned for her guards to step back. She walked slowly to Luke, circling him once, observing every reaction. He stood still, calm, his posture simple, almost casual. He did not flinch as her fingers passed close to his shoulder. He did not tremble as her eyes pierced him. And somehow, in his calmness, there was power. "You do not fear me," she said again. Luke shook his head. "Not anymore. Fear is for people who let it control them." Sarava paused. His words were strange. Humans usually begged, sometimes even cursed her. But this one, he spoke like he had already lived through worse than she could imagine. She wanted to know why, wanted to see what made him different. "You will come with me," she said finally. The crowd gasped again. They had expected death, or at least punishment. But Sarava's command was not to strike. It was to bring him to her ship. Luke's eyes narrowed slightly. He did not resist, but he did not show relief either. They walked through the crowd. The people parted, fear still visible on their faces, yet curiosity mixed with hope. If one human could defy the vampire queen, maybe there was a chance for more. Once inside the ship, the air changed. It was colder here, darker, but alive with a strange energy. Lights moved across the walls, casting shadows that seemed to dance. Luke felt a shiver run through him, but he did not falter. He had faced dark places before, dark machines, and disasters that had taken his friends. He knew fear, and he had survived it. Sarava led him to a chamber filled with strange instruments. The room hummed with power, and her guards waited silently. She circled him slowly. "You resist me," she said. "I cannot read you. I cannot touch your mind. That is unusual." Luke said nothing. He simply looked at her, steady and calm. "Why?" Sarava asked again. "Why are you not afraid?" Luke finally spoke, his voice quiet but firm. "Because fear is a choice, and I choose not to kneel to fear. I choose to stand." For the first time in her life, Sarava felt something unfamiliar. She felt respect, or at least a curiosity that edged toward something she could not name. She had never encountered a creature who could resist her, who could stand as she approached, who did not shiver or fall. She studied him for a long moment. The silence was heavy, almost unbearable. And then she made a decision. She would keep him close. She would study him, learn why he was different, and perhaps she would find a way to make him bend. Or destroy him if she had to. But for now, he was alive. And the humans of Grey Harbor, watching from below, began to feel something new. They began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, humans were stronger than the galaxy believed. Luke Harris had not knelt. He had not bowed. And that simple act, in the face of terror, the likes of which the stars had never seen, had changed everything. Luke walked through the corridors of Sarava's ship, the sound of his boots echoing softly against the smooth black floor. The walls were alive with faint lights that pulsed in patterns he could not understand. Strange hums resonated through the ship, vibrating in his chest and reminding him of how alien and powerful this place was. Despite that, he did not feel fear. He had faced worse. Sarava followed him closely, her eyes studying him with an intensity that made him aware of every movement. He could feel her power, the subtle pressure that most beings could not resist, pressing on the edges of his mind. Yet he remained calm. Each step he took reminded him that fear did not control him. and that knowledge was stronger than any alien power. "You are unusual," Sarava said finally, her voice low, carrying curiosity and suspicion. "Humans are weak. Most of them fall immediately. They would give their lives rather than defy me. And yet, you are different." Luke kept his gaze forward. "I have seen worse than you," he said, simply. "I survived disasters that killed my friends. I survived hunger, cold, isolation. I have learned that fear is temporary, but choices last." She stopped walking and circled him slowly. Her long fingers traced the air near his shoulders, almost touching him, but not quite. She was testing, probing, trying to find a crack. He did not flinch. He did not move. "You carry something within you," Sarava said, almost whispering. "Something my power cannot touch." "How?" Luke shook his head slightly. "You cannot touch what I refuse to give you. You cannot break me because I do not bend." Her eyes narrowed. The thought intrigued her more than it should have. She had ruled countless worlds, and most beings were afraid of her. But he was not afraid. And more than that, he seemed steady, like a rock in a storm. "You will come with me to the chamber," she said after a long pause. "I want to see exactly why you are resistant." Luke nodded. "I will go. I am not afraid." The chamber was larger than any room Luke had seen on Grey Harbor. Dark, high ceilings stretched overhead, with strange machines lining the walls. They hummed and glowed faintly, pulsing with power. Sarava gestured for him to stand in the center. "Most beings who enter this chamber do not survive 10 seconds, she said. "It is a test. A test of mind, body, and spirit. Few are strong enough to endure it. It is designed to break the weak." Luke looked around. The machines did not scare him. He had been through situations where death had stalked him like a shadow. This was different, yes, but it was just another challenge. "I will endure," he said, calmly. Sarava's guards moved to activate the chamber. Light and energy began to fill the space, flowing toward Luke. Shadows danced along the walls, forming shapes that twisted and writhed. Shapes of monsters, of people he had lost, of fears he had never spoken aloud. The room whispered his worst memories, feeding on pain and terror. For a moment, Luke felt the familiar tug of fear. He remembered his mining team trapped in a collapsing tunnel, the ground trembling as dust filled the air. He remembered losing friends to starvation and accidents, their voices calling out to him as he ran through the cold darkness, powerless to save them. But he did not scream. He did not fall. He did not kneel. He faced it all, breathing slowly, moving forward step by step. Sarava watched from the shadows. Her eyes narrowed. Most beings would have crumbled instantly. She could feel the chamber trying to take control, her powers assisting it. But Luke did not break. The lights bent and twisted, trying to push him to the edge of panic. Yet he continued to walk calmly through the illusions. "Interesting," she murmured. "He should not survive this." Luke reached the center of the chamber. The illusions rose around him, forming shapes of his past fears. The tunnels collapsing, the freezing wind on the mountain peaks, the cries of friends lost long ago. He paused for a moment and looked at them. He did not speak. He did not fight them. He simply acknowledged them, accepting that they were part of his life, part of what made him who he was. The machines began to falter. Lights flickered. Panels sparked. Sarava's voice rose slightly. "Stop. Stop this at once." Her guards froze. They had never seen her speak like this. The chamber's energy surged against Luke, but he did not fall. Instead, he seemed to absorb it, his calmness radiating outward, weakening the machines. Luke breathed deeply and stepped forward. The illusions vanished. The chamber fell silent. Sarava stared at him, unable to hide her astonishment. You survive, she said, voice almost breathless. No one survives that test. You are not prey. Luke looked at her, still calm. I am not afraid of being prey. I have survived worse than this. I will survive anything I choose to face. Sarava took a step back. She had ruled for centuries, and no being had ever resisted her. Yet here was a human who had walked through the chamber, unbroken, unshaken, untouched by her powers or the machine. She studied him, curiosity and disbelief warring in her mind. You carry something rare, she said. Some humans develop a resistance after extreme trauma. You are one of them. Luke nodded slightly. I have survived much. It taught me to control my fear, not let it control me. That is why you cannot touch my mind. You cannot force me to obey. Sarava paced slowly around him. Most humans are weak, fragile, afraid. You are not. That makes you dangerous. I am only human, Luke said simply. But humans are not weak when we choose not to be. We survive, even when the world is against us. Sarava's lips curved into a faint smile. It was not the cruel smile she often wore, but a different one, an expression almost like respect. You are a puzzle, human, she said. I have never seen one like you. Perhaps I should study you more closely. Luke did not respond. He had no fear, no pride. He simply stood, letting her words wash over him. She studied him for a long time. The guards whispered among themselves, unsure of what to do. No one had ever seen Sarava pause like this, and no one had ever seen a human survive the chamber. You will stay with me, she said finally. Not as a prisoner, but as a subject of study. I want to understand why you are different, why you are strong, where others fail. Luke nodded. He had expected no less. He did not fear her judgment or her presence. He had survived worse than alien royalty and machines designed to break minds. Over the next few hours, she observed him closely. She asked questions, tested him with small illusions, and tried her powers in ways that had broken every other being she had ever commanded. Luke remained calm, answering each question simply and moving through each test without hesitation. The guards watched silently, whispering to each other in awe. The human did not bend. He did not flinch. He did not break. Finally, Sarava stopped. You are remarkable, she said, her voice quieter than before. I do not understand why you are like this. But I know one thing. You are not prey. You are dangerous. Luke nodded. I am human. That is all. Humans survive because we must. Fear is part of life, but it does not control us. She stared at him, realizing something important. This human had shown her something she had never considered. Strength did not come from fear or power alone. It could come from the heart, from choices, from refusing to kneel even when the universe demanded it. Sarava stepped back and studied him quietly. She did not speak for a long time. Luke remained calm, simply breathing and waiting. Finally, she said, You may leave the chamber, but know this. I will not forget you, human. You have changed something in me, and I do not yet know what it means. Luke nodded. I will not kneel to fear. That will never change. Sarava's lips curved in a faint, thoughtful smile. For the first time in centuries, she wondered if she had underestimated humans. She wondered if their strength, their resilience, and their refusal to bow might one day rival her own. Luke walked out of the chamber. He was tired, yes, but unbroken. He had faced the Queen's power and survived. And in doing so, he had shown not only Sarava, but everyone on her ship, that humans were not weak. They were strong. And strength came in ways even a vampire queen could not anticipate. The story of one human standing unbroken in the face of the galaxy's most feared being was only beginning. After the chamber, Luke was led through the ship's corridors again. This time, it was quieter, less threatening. The hum of the ship seemed softer, almost like it had calmed in response to him. Sarava walked beside him, her eyes studying him with a curiosity that bordered on fascination. He could feel her attention, sharp and steady, but he did not flinch. He had learned long ago that fear never helped anyone. "You survived the chamber," Sarava said, breaking the silence. "No one has ever done that. Why are you not afraid of me?" Luke shrugged. "I have seen worse. I have faced death, cold, hunger, and loss. Fear is just another thing to pass through. It cannot hold me if I choose to move forward." Sarava studied him closely. Most beings would have fallen at her words, trembling under her gaze. But Luke remained calm. There was something in him, something human, that could not be touched by her power. It puzzled her, and she liked the challenge. "You are dangerous," she said finally. "I have ruled entire systems, and none have resisted me. And yet, you stand. You survive. That is rare. Very rare." Luke nodded. "I am human. Humans survive because we must. We face the impossible, and we keep going. That is our way." She stopped walking and gestured for him to follow her into a larger chamber. It was vast, circular, with walls that shimmered like liquid metal. Strange patterns of light moved across the surface, forming shapes that were almost alive. Sarava gestured for him to step into the center. "This is the test of shadows," she said. "It is designed to break the mind, to twist the soul. Few survive it. You will enter alone, and you will face everything you fear. Most beings scream. Most beg. Most die. Most die." Luke looked around. The chamber was intimidating. Yes, but it did not scare him. He had been through things that would have killed ordinary people. Collapsing tunnels, freezing nights alone on distant moons. Hunger that made the body weak. He had survived all of it. He understood fear, and he understood that it could be faced and passed through. "I am ready," he said simply. Sarava's eyes glowed faintly red. She studied him a long moment before nodding. "Very well. Enter." The chamber reacted immediately. Lights shimmered, shadows stretched across the walls, forming creatures and shapes that seemed to move on their own. The air grew colder, heavier. Luke's heart beat steadily. He had learned to control his fear, and he focused on his breathing. Inhale, exhale, slow and calm. He could not let panic touch him. The first shadow appeared, a figure of a man he once knew, a friend lost in a mining accident. The shadow screamed silently, its face twisted in pain, reaching for him. Luke did not flinch. He faced the illusion and stepped forward. The shadow reached for him, but he walked through it calmly, acknowledging it without fear. The walls shifted again. Now the shadows became animals, massive predators with glowing eyes. They lunged at him, teeth bared, claws extended. He sidestepped, ducked, and moved around them. They tried to corner him, to make him feel trapped. But he did not panic. He focused on movement, on staying calm, on surviving. Sarava watched from above, her interest growing. The chamber should have broken him long ago, yet he moved through it as if he had walked these halls before. The shadows grew darker, more terrifying, forming images of pain, loss, and fear from his life. He remembered nights alone on the icy moons, watching his friends die one by one, while he ran through collapsing tunnels. He remembered the hunger that clawed at his stomach, the thirst that burned his throat. But he did not allow it to control him. He had survived before, and he would survive again. The shadows tried to touch him, whispering his worst memories into his mind. He felt the tug of fear, faint but real. His body tensed for a moment, but he breathed steadily and kept moving. Every step was a choice, every step a refusal to bow to the terror around him. The chamber reacted. Lights flickered, machines hummed louder, and some panels sparked. The illusions became unstable. Sarava's voice echoed through the chamber, low and tense. Most beings would have broken by now. Why does he not scream? Why does he not beg? Luke reached the center of the chamber. The shadows converged on him, forming the shapes of his greatest losses. He paused for a moment, looking at them calmly. They were part of his life, part of his survival, part of what had made him strong. He did not fight them, did not scream at them, did not fall. He simply acknowledged them and moved forward. The lights flickered violently. Machines sparked and whined. Sarava felt her power struggle against his mind, trying to penetrate, to control, to bend. But he was untouchable. The barrier around him, formed from years of survival and choice, resisted every attempt. The shadows shattered, breaking into small fragments that dissolved into light. The chamber fell silent. Luke stood alone in the center, calm, unbroken. Sarava took a step forward. "Impossible," she whispered. "He should have fallen. He should have begged. He should have broken. Yet he stands." Luke looked at her, steady, calm. "I will not kneel to fear," he said. "I choose to stand." For the first time in her life, Sarava felt something unfamiliar. It was not fear, nor anger, nor desire. It was respect. A strange, quiet respect for the human who had faced the impossible and survived. "You carry something rare," she said slowly. "Some humans develop resistance after extreme trauma. You are one of them. You are not prey. You are dangerous." Luke nodded. "I am human. That is all. But humans are strong because we survive. Fear is just one part of life, and it does not control us if we choose not to let it." Sarava paced slowly around him, her long fingers brushing the air near his shoulders but never touching. "You are more than I expected. More than any human I have encountered. Perhaps I should learn from you, not hunt you. Enderstein. Mender. I have come enter. Enderstein." Luke did not speak. He simply stood, calm and steady. His presence, a quiet defiance. The guards whispered among themselves. No one had ever seen Sarava pause like this. No one had ever seen a human survive the chamber. They looked at Luke with awe, realizing that he was no ordinary human. He carried something different, something stronger than fear or pain. Finally, Sarava stopped. "You may leave the chamber," she said, her voice quieter than before. "But know this, I will not forget you, human. You have changed something in me, and I do not yet know what it means." Luke nodded. "I will not kneel to fear. That will never change." End quote. Grode. He walked out of the chamber. He was tired, yes, but unbroken. He had faced the Queen's power and survived. And in doing so, he had shown Sarava and everyone on her ship that humans were not weak. Humans were strong. And strength came from choices, from courage, from the will to stand when the universe demanded submission. As he walked through the corridors, Sarava followed silently, her mind still turning over what she had seen. She had ruled for centuries, feared across the stars, yet a single human had changed her perspective. She did not yet know if she would bend or destroy him, but she knew one thing. This human was remarkable, and his strength could not be ignored. Luke moved past her guards without hesitation. He was aware of their presence, aware of the danger, but he did not feel it pressing on him. He had faced worse, and he had learned that no power, no matter how great, could bend a mind that refused to yield. Sarava studied him from behind, her curiosity growing. Perhaps, she thought, there was something to learn from these humans. Perhaps their strength was not in numbers, nor in raw power, but in the choices they made, the courage they carried, and the will to survive against impossible odds. Luke reached a chamber near the command center. He paused and looked at the view outside the ship. Gray Harbor spread below him, a fragile cluster of buildings and machines on a harsh world. Yet he felt no fear for it. Humans had survived worse than alien queens. They would survive again. Sarava watched him silently. For the first time, she wondered if humans were not only strong, but dangerous in ways she could not yet comprehend. Perhaps it was time to change her understanding of power, of fear, and of survival. Luke did not know it, but he had already begun to change the vampire queen. His calm, steady courage had reached her, and for the first time, she questioned what she had believed about strength. And so, the story of Luke Harris, the human who would not kneel, continued. He had survived the chamber. He had faced fear, loss, and power greater than anything most humans could imagine. And he had walked away, unbroken, unbowed, and ready for whatever came next. The galaxy had not seen the last of this human. Sarava would remember him. She would learn from him. And others, both human and alien, would soon realize that the quiet strength of one human could change everything.